We are told that democracy belongs to the voters, that the power lies in your hands. But beneath the surface of public institutions, a different game is being played. Unelected firms are quietly dismantling the state, driven by corporate influence and profit. While they bill billions in consulting fees, our essential services crumble in the name of efficiency. This is a crisis of governmental control. The politicians are the face, but they are not the architects. Hidden costs are rising, accountability is vanishing, and the public is left paying the invoice. They act as advisory services, but they function as a shadow government. From healthcare to housing, their policies shape your reality without your consent. It is time to pull back the curtain on the consultocracy. Welcome to the story of how private interests captured the world. Watch closely.
Last year, your government paid millions, no, billions of dollars to people you never voted for. People who now decide how your hospitals run, how your schools are funded, and where your tax money really goes. And here's the kicker. You don't even know their names. You've probably never heard of them. But they've heard of you. Or at least, they've heard of your wallet. We're conditioned to believe that democracy means we elect leaders who make the big decisions, right? We vote for presidents, governors, senators, all under the assumption that they control the levers of power. But what if that's just theater? What if the real architects of your economic reality are operating behind a curtain of efficiency and expertise, billing your government by the hour while rewriting the rules in their favor? I'm talking about the big three strategy firms, McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, and Bain, and their big four accounting cousins. They promise to streamline government, cut waste, and bring private sector discipline to public institutions. Sounds noble, doesn't it? But the reality is far more sinister. These firms don't just advise, they control. They draft legislation, manage crises, restructure entire economies, and yes, even work with authoritarian regimes when the price is right. You already passed by this without knowing. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might fundamentally change how you see power, money, and who really runs the show. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is the consultocracy, and it's time we pulled back the curtain. Before we go deeper, I need you to do something. If what you've just heard resonates with you, if you've ever felt that disconnect between what politicians promise and what actually happens with your money, drop a comment below. Tell me, have you or someone you know ever watched consultants walk into your workplace, your school district, your government office, promising efficiency only to leave things worse than before? Your story matters, and honestly, your engagement is what keeps content like this alive and reaching more people who need to hear it. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want more deep dives like this, because the algorithm doesn't favor videos that challenge powerful interests. This story only spreads if people like you share it. Now let's pull back the curtain even further. Now, here's where the story gets darker and a lot more personal to your life today. To really understand how consulting firms became the shadow government, we need to rewind about 100 years. It all started with something that seemed totally harmless: efficiency. Picture this: the late 1800s, factories everywhere, and a guy named Frederick Taylor walking around with a stopwatch, timing how fast workers could tighten a bolt or move a crate. He called it scientific management, and at the time it seemed brilliant. Measure everything, optimize everything, make everything faster and cheaper. Fast forward to the 1920s. A man named James McKinsey took that factory floor thinking and brought it into the executive suite. He founded a firm that didn't just help companies run better, it told them how to think, how to strategize, how to restructure. And for a while that was fine. It was just business helping business. But then came the 1980s, and this is where the trap was set. Ronald Reagan in the US, Margaret Thatcher in the UK. They championed a new ideology, neoliberalism. The core belief? Government is bloated, wasteful, and inefficient. Business, on the other hand, is lean, smart, and driven by results. So why not run government like a business? It sounded logical, it sounded modern, but it opened the floodgates. Suddenly, governments weren't just inspired by the private sector, they were hiring it to do the work that elected officials used to do. Contracts worth millions, then billions, started flowing to consulting firms. McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, Bain & Company. They weren't just advising anymore. They were architecting the state itself. They brought in corporate tools like the BCG Matrix, which was designed to help companies decide which product lines to keep or kill. But now, they were applying it to public services. Hospitals, schools, welfare programs, they started being treated like business units. And here's the kicker. The goal wasn't public good anymore. It was efficiency, which in consulting speak often just means cutting costs and maximizing profit. They didn't just offer advice on the side, they rewrote the playbook, they drafted policy, they designed procurement systems, they decided which services got funded and which got axed. And because they operated under the banner of expertise and data-driven decision-making, nobody questioned it. This was the birth of what I call the Big Con, a system where private firms with zero accountability to voters started making decisions that shape your healthcare, your education, your taxes, and your future. They weren't elected. They can't be voted out. But they have more influence over policy than most politicians ever will. And this next part changed everything. These firms realized that the more dependent governments became on them, the more contracts they could secure. So they started building entire ecosystems inside the state, consultants training government staff, designing the systems government uses, and then being hired again to fix the problems those systems created. It's a perpetual money machine, and the taxpayer is the one funding it. Think about that for a second. You're paying taxes so that your government can hire private firms to tell them how to spend your taxes. And those firms? They're billing by the hour, sometimes charging over $1,000 per consultant per day. Meanwhile, the public services you depend on are being hollowed out in the name of efficiency. Comment below. I see the trap. Now I want to go even deeper into this, because what we're talking about isn't just about money, it's about control, and it's about a psychological trap so elegant that most people inside the system don't even realize they're caught in it. Here's how it works. Imagine you're a government agency. Budget cuts come down from above. You're told to do more with less. So you lay off experienced staff, freeze hiring, cut training programs. You're trying to be efficient, right? But now you have a problem. You don't have the internal capacity to handle complex projects anymore. So what do? You hire consultants. They come in, they're polished, they have fancy slide decks, they speak the language of data-driven solutions and scalable frameworks. They promise to fix the mess. And maybe they do for a while. But here's the trap. The more you rely on them, the less your own people learn. Your internal staff becomes dependent. They stop developing the skills they need because the consultants are always there to do the thinking. It's like hiring someone to go to the gym for you. Your muscles don't grow, they atrophy. Economist Mariana Mazzucato calls this the cycle of dependency, and it's brutal. A government cuts its own capacity to save money in the short term, which creates a capability gap, which forces them to hire consultants to fill that gap, which further erodes their ability to govern themselves. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it gets worse every year. In 2021, a UK minister named Lord Agnew actually resigned over this, publicly calling out the government's reliance on consultants as a system that infantilizes the civil service. Think about that word, infantilizes. It means the government, the institution that's supposed to protect and serve you, has been turned into a child that can't think for itself. But the really dark part? The consultants have no skin in the game. They advise on high-risk strategies. They restructure entire departments. They recommend policies that affect millions of lives, and if it all goes sideways, they walk away. No accountability, no consequences. Just another line on the resume and another invoice paid by you, the taxpayer. And this brings me to one of the most disturbing examples of moral hazard I've ever seen: McKinsey and the opioid crisis. This is where the mask comes off completely. McKinsey was hired by Purdue Pharma, the company that makes OxyContin, one of the most addictive drugs ever put on the market. And what did McKinsey do? They didn't just advise, they helped turbocharge opioid sales. They ran the numbers, built the models, and told Purdue exactly how to push more pills into communities already devastated by addiction. We're talking about strategies to reward distributors for higher volumes, target specific doctors, and maximize profit while people were dying. But here's the kicker. At the same time, McKinsey was also advising the FDA, the very agency responsible for regulating drug safety. They were playing both sides of the table, advising the drug company on how to sell more, and advising the government on how to regulate it. The conflict of interest is so blatant, it's almost hard to believe. And when it all came to light, McKinsey paid nearly $600 million to settle the allegations. Not an admission of guilt, a settlement, a cost of doing business. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of Americans lost their lives to opioid addiction. Families were destroyed. Entire communities were gutted. But McKinsey? They're still operating, still advising governments, still raking in billions, because the system protects them. The revolving door between consulting firms and government means that the people who hire them are often the same people who used to work for them, or who hope to work for them in the future. It's a closed loop of power and profit, and the public is locked out. This is the hidden cost of the consultocracy. It's not just about wasted tax dollars. It's about a transformation in how power works, a shift in who makes the decisions that shape your life. It's about the slow, quiet erosion of democratic accountability, replaced by a system where expertise is for sale to the highest bidder, and the consequences are always someone else's problem. Drop a comment. They played both sides. Now let me show you what this actually costs. Not just in dollars, but in the destruction of entire systems that were supposed to protect people like you and me. We're not talking about small numbers here. Globally, the public sector alone spends over $73 billion a year on consulting fees. That's billion with a B. But here's the thing. Those fees are just the tip of the iceberg. The real cost is what happens after. The consultants leave. It's the collapse of institutions, the gutting of public services, and in some cases, the complete capture of the state by private interests. Let me take you to South Africa, because this is where the revelations get absolutely chilling. In what's now known as the state capture scandal, global consulting giants like Bain and McKinsey didn't just advise the government, they actively facilitated one of the largest corruption schemes in modern history. Bain & Company was literally banned from receiving UK government contracts because of what they did. They helped dismantle South Africa's tax collection agency, SARS, which was one of the most effective revenue agencies on the continent. A judicial commission investigating the collapse called it a premeditated offensive against the state. Think about that. A private consulting firm, paid with taxpayer money, systematically destroyed the very institution responsible for collecting taxes to fund schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. And they did it on purpose. Why? Because it benefited a network of politically connected elites who wanted to loot public funds without oversight. Meanwhile, McKinsey was neck-deep in the same mess. They worked with state-owned enterprises like Eskom, the national energy company, and Transnet, the rail and ports operator. But instead of helping these companies serve the public, McKinsey became entangled in bribery schemes that funneled millions into the pockets of corrupt officials and their associates, including the infamous Gupta family. When the truth came out, McKinsey agreed to pay back over $122 million to settle charges, but the damage was done. South Africa's economy was crippled. Public services collapsed. Rolling blackouts became a daily reality because the energy grid had been looted from the inside. And ordinary South Africans? They paid the price, literally and figuratively. Jobs lost, opportunities destroyed, trust in government shattered. But this isn't just happening in far-off places. Let's talk about France. In 2022, a French Senate inquiry dubbed McKinsey-gate exposed how public spending on consulting firms had doubled in just a few years. Consultants were running everything: IT systems, policy design, even the COVID-19 vaccination rollout. The government had outsourced so much of its core function, that senators described it as the erosion of the boundary between the state and the private sector. The state wasn't governing anymore. It was being managed by firms billing thousands of euros per day. And here's what makes it even worse. These consulting firms often pay little to no taxes in the countries where they operate, using offshore structures and complex accounting tricks to shield their profits. So not only are they draining public budgets through fees, they're also avoiding contributing back into the system through taxes. It's a double hit. Money flows out, nothing flows back in. This is the hidden truth behind the efficiency narrative. When you hear politicians talk about bringing in consultants to streamline government or cut waste, what they're really doing is opening the door to a system that extracts wealth, erodes institutional knowledge, and leaves the public sector weaker than before. It's not about making government work better for you, it's about making it more profitable for them. And every time this happens, it's your money funding it. Money that could have built schools, trained teachers, hired nurses, fixed roads, invested in communities. Instead, it's going into the pockets of partners at firms who will never be held accountable for the damage they leave behind. Write in the comments, follow the money. Now I want to go even deeper because understanding the psychology and the cost is one thing, but understanding who benefits is where the whole picture comes together. And this is where it gets really uncomfortable because we're about to see how this isn't just incompetence or bureaucratic bloating. This is a designed system, a machine built to transfer wealth from the public to private hands, and consulting firms are the engineers making it all work smoothly. Here's the question you need to ask. Why do these consulting firms always push the same policies? Privatization, austerity, efficiency cuts, restructuring that just happens to involve selling off public assets to private buyers. It's not a coincidence, it's the business model. Because here's the secret. The consulting firms aren't just working for the government, they're working for the buyers too. Let me give you a perfect example. In the UK, McKinsey was hired by the government to help draft the Health and Social Care Act of 2012, a piece of legislation that fundamentally restructured the National Health Service. The stated goal? Make it more efficient, more responsive, more modern. Sounds great, right? Except at the exact same time McKinsey was being paid with taxpayer money to reform the NHS, they were also advising private healthcare companies, the very companies that stood to profit massively from the privatization that reform would enable. They were literally writing the rules of the game while coaching the players on how to win. It's one of the most blatant conflicts of interest you could imagine, and yet it's barely talked about because this is just how the system works now. The consulting firms operate in this gray zone where disclosure requirements are weak, accountability is almost non-existent, and the revolving door keeps spinning. A partner at McKinsey today could be a government minister tomorrow, or vice versa. The lines are so blurred that it's impossible to tell where public interest ends and private profit begins. And this isn't some accident of poor oversight. This is the transformation they've been working toward for decades. These firms, especially Bain & Company, pioneered the entire private equity consulting model. Their whole worldview is built around one idea: shareholder value maximization. That means extracting as much profit as possible, as quickly as possible for investors. And when you apply that logic to government, the results are catastrophic. Because a government isn't supposed to maximize profit, it's supposed to serve people. But when Bain walks into a government agency and starts running the numbers, they're not asking, how do we improve healthcare outcomes? Or how do we reduce homelessness? They're asking, how do we unlock value? Where's the inefficiency we can cut? What assets can be monetized? They treat citizens like customers in public services, like underperforming business units. And the solution almost always involves cutting staff, outsourcing services, and selling off infrastructure to private investors. Here's where it gets even darker. The same institutional investors that own massive stakes in these consulting firms, names like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, are also the ones buying up the public assets being privatized. So the consultants advise the government to sell. The government sells. And the investment funds that partially own the consulting firms are the ones buying. It's a closed loop. Public money flows out, private wealth flows in, and the consulting firms take a cut at every stage. They act as the bridge, the middleman, the facilitator that allows Wall Street to monetize the public sector. Hospitals, water systems, transportation infrastructure, even prisons. All of it becomes an investment opportunity. And while this is happening, regular people see their services decline. You wait longer for medical care, your water bills go up, public transit gets worse. But the investors, they're seeing returns. The consultants, they're getting paid. The politicians, they're getting campaign donations and job offers. And you're left holding the bill and wondering why everything feels like it's falling apart. This is the hidden machinery of power in the modern economy. It's not a shadow government in the sense of some secret cabal meeting in dark rooms. It's a shadow government in the sense that the real decisions about who gets health care, whose infrastructure gets funding, which communities get investment, are being made by people you didn't elect, can't fire, and who profit directly from the policies they recommend. Type in the comments, "I see who wins." But here's where the narrative shifts, because I don't want to leave you feeling helpless. Understanding the problem is the first step, but the second step is realizing that this system only works because we've been conditioned to accept it as inevitable. And it's not. There are concrete ways to break the big con, and some of them are already happening in places where people have decided they've had enough. The first thing that needs to happen is what experts call in-housing, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Governments need to stop outsourcing their brains and start rebuilding their own internal capacity. Right now, when a crisis hits or a new policy needs designing, the default response is to call McKinsey or BCG and hand them a blank check. But it doesn't have to be that way. There was a time when governments had their own policy experts, their own strategists, their own IT departments staffed with people who understood both the technology and the public mission. Those capabilities didn't disappear because they were inefficient. They were deliberately dismantled in the name of cutting costs. But the irony is that outsourcing has become far more expensive. A single consulting team can bill over $1 million a week. Imagine what you could do with that money if it went toward hiring permanent, skilled civil servants who actually have loyalty to the public, not to a billable hour quota. Rebuilding this capacity takes political will, but it's not impossible. Some governments are already starting to realize that dependency on consultants is a liability, not a strength. The second transformation that's desperately needed is strict conflict of interest laws. This should be obvious, but apparently it's not, so let me spell it out. If a consulting firm is advising a government regulator, they should be absolutely banned from also advising the industries that regulator oversees. No exceptions. No gray areas. The fact that McKinsey could simultaneously advise Purdue Pharma on how to sell more opioids and the FDA on drug safety policy is insane. It's a betrayal of public trust so fundamental that it should be illegal everywhere, not just subject to settlement payments after the damage is done. And this isn't just about pharmaceuticals. The same conflict plays out in finance, energy, healthcare, education, every sector where regulation meets private profit. Consultants draft the regulations, then turn around and help corporations find the loopholes. They're writing the rules and coaching people on how to break them. France is already moving in the right direction. After the McKinsey Gates scandal, lawmakers started drafting legislation to ban pro bono consulting for government agencies. Why? Because free consulting is almost never actually free. It's a loss leader, a way to get a foot in the door so that later, when the government is dependent, the firm can land massive contracts worth tens of millions. It's the same strategy drug dealers use. The first hit is free. Once you're hooked, the price goes up. Other countries need to follow France's lead and close these loopholes before they become highways for corruption. But here's the part that matters most to you right now, today. You are not powerless in this. You might not be able to rewrite federal procurement law overnight, but you can start paying attention to how your local and state governments spend money. Most people have no idea how much of their tax dollars are going to advisory services versus actual services. Next time there's a school budget crisis or a healthcare funding shortfall, ask the question, how much are we spending on consultants? Demand transparency. Most of this spending is buried in line items with vague labels like professional services or management consulting. Push for itemized breakdowns. Show up to town halls, city council meetings, school board sessions. Ask, who are we hiring? What are they delivering? Are we building our own capacity or just renting someone else's? Your attention is your weapon. The reason this system thrives is because it operates in the shadows, hidden behind complexity and jargon that makes ordinary people feel like they couldn't possibly understand. But you can. And when enough people start asking the right questions, the whole house of cards starts to shake. Comment below, I'm paying attention now. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, you're not here by accident. You're here because something about this system didn't sit right with you, and now you have the language to understand why. The consulting industry has spent decades building a reputation around one word, expertise. But what we've uncovered today is that too often, it's not about expertise at all. It's about extraction. Extracting wealth from the public purse, extracting power from democratic institutions, and doing it all without ever being held accountable. You're not crazy for thinking something's broken. You're not paranoid for questioning who really benefits when governments hire these firms. You're informed, and that makes you dangerous to a system that relies on people not paying attention. So here's what I need from you. First, if this video opened your eyes or confirmed something you've been feeling for a while, drop a comment below and just write, I see the shadow. That tells me you're part of the informed minority, and honestly, it helps this message reach more people who need to hear it. Second, hit that like button. I know it sounds small, but it actually matters. It tells the algorithm that this content is worth pushing out, even when it challenges powerful interests. And third, if you're not subscribed yet, do that now. This channel is about financial freedom, but real freedom starts with understanding the systems designed to keep you in the dark. We're pulling back the curtain on all of it. Money, power, policy, the whole machine. There's a video right here that digs into how these same financial players are manipulating the housing market, making it nearly impossible for regular people to buy homes while investment firms scoop up entire neighborhoods. It's the same playbook, different sector. Click it, keep going, and I'll see you there.